Welcome to the Outthinkers podcast. Plug into fascinating minds and breakthrough ideas that are transforming industries and the world. I am your host, Ty Krippendorf, founder of Outthinker, a global think tank comprised of corporate strategists and innovators that are shaping the future of business. If this describes you, join us at outthinker.com. Now, let's dive into this week's episode with Mark Crowley.
Everything boils down to feelings and emotions. Up to 95% of human behavior is driven by feelings and emotions. And people come up to me when they hear me say this, and they go, yeah, well, I'm a data guy and I'm really analytical, so I'm the exception. And what they don't understand is it's going on under the hood. They're totally unconscious about it. We have these feelings. It goes back, and the heart is involved. It goes up to the mind. The mind makes a decision about what to do about it. We actually rationalize our decisions based on our feelings afterwards, right? Or in the moment. And, so people can have data in front of them. They'll say, but I think we need to do this because they're feeling something. There's some experience that's influencing them. And so really what this boils down to is that if your well-being is high, you are actually set up for optimal behavior or performance rather. Ideal. If you're marinating in positive emotions and you're having a really good experience from work, guess what? You're actually going to perform well.
What if the real key to performance isn't found in data or dashboards, but in the human heart? In this episode, we explore how the way people feel at work isn't just a soft idea at all. It's the system that drives every measure of success. And the leaders who understand that consistently outperform those who don't. Our guest today is Mark Crowley, a longtime financial services leader who led consistently top-performing teams over a 25-year career, then turned his practice into proof. He's the author of Lead from the Heart and the newly released The Power of Employee Wellbeing, and frequently writes for Fast Company. In 2013, Mark was the first to report Gallup's data showing that only 30% of U.S. employees were engaged at work, helping spark a decade of debate about what actually drives performance. He's since connected the dots between lived leadership and research. In this conversation, we dive into why traditional engagement efforts often flatline, the Oxford research which links well-being directly to productivity, and what coherence between heart and mind mean for decision-making on the job. Mark separates caring from being nice, shows how belonging beats boss quality as a driver of retention, and offers a refreshingly practical definition of strategy. Know where you're going, plan with rigor, and be ready to pivot the moment reality disagrees. Stick around to learn the first moves any leader can make this week to raise well-being and with it results by designing teams where people feel safe, valued, and able to do the best work of their lives. Let's jump in. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us. It is great to have you finally on the podcast. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in La Jolla, California, right outside of San Diego.
Beautiful. And it's 70 degrees and blue sky.
It is. It's every exactly that. Tomorrow we're going to get rain. So it's like, wow, the weather is changing. The seasons are changing. So
okay.
It'd be great.
All right. Good. Rain is good. So I want to dig with so much I want to cover, but I want to start off with the same two questions that I always ask my guests. The first is just to help us get to know you a little bit personally. Could you complete the sentence for me? If you really know me, you know that.
Everything that I talk about, write about, speak about, I've done my entire career. So in fact, somebody told me, I'll put it this way, Kayan, somebody that I think is like not from this planet, who's like deeply spiritual. And she just said, if you're going to write a book called Lead from the Heart, you're going to have to live it. Like you're going to have to be the embodiment of it. And so in that moment, I reflected on it. I thought, everything I'm talking about, I've lived this. I've done this my entire life. This is not a hard challenge for me. This is not a hurdle for me. In fact, what I've spent the last 15 years doing is looking for evidence to prove what I already learned in my own direct experience, not the other way around.
So how did you learn it? Was it that you experienced not leading from the heart and then you realized the benefit, or did you just intuitively know that this was the right way from the beginning? Was there a time where you stumbled?
It's a journey, and I'll try to be really succinct because there was a point where I was writing the second edition of Lead from the Heart where I realized, oh man, like I'm here to do this. Like this is like who I am. Like this is my purpose. And so I would just say that my mom died when I was very young, and my father raised me. He's actually a very successful guy, but equally unsuccessful as a parent. And he spent my entire childhood trying to cripple my self esteem, my self belief by emotionally abusing me and then kicked me out of the house after he'd done a pretty good job of that. He basically said, it's time for you to move on a few weeks after I graduated from high school. And so you can imagine the next 5 years, I did graduate because my father told me I was going to be an abject failure. And so I had this binary understanding that if I didn't graduate from college, by hook or by crook, I don't care. If you don't have any money, you don't have a job, you've just been kicked out of the house. If you don't graduate, you're going to be that person. And I couldn't live with it. So I did graduate, probably should have been kicked out the first couple of years, but graduated from a top 10 public school, did very well. But it was in the moment of graduation where I started asking people, like, what is it like you're going to do next? And oh, I'm going to Harvard Business School, or I'm going to graduate school, or I'm going to law school. And I was like, what? Like you're doing that? You have the courage and belief in yourself to do that? And even though I had a harder time graduating, my challenge to get through the same university with the same degree was much more significant. These
Yeah.
people were approaching their life with optimism and self-belief that I didn't have even at that point. And so I started thinking, well, like, why are you more confident about yourself? And it should be obvious the reason why I wasn't, but it had
Mhm.
everything to do with my upbringing. I can't explain to you why I did this, but when I started managing people, I unconsciously decided to give them everything that I always wanted and believed would have made me infinitely more effective and successful at
Mm.
24 years old when I graduated from college, 6 years after being kicked out. And every team I managed, man or woman, education levels didn't matter, and job level didn't matter. Every job I ever had, my team soared. And so, really, the bottom line for me was that after when I was 43 years old, a woman said to me, who had worked for me for almost 20 years, you realize you manage people very differently. And it was only
Hmm.
then that my consciousness opened up to realizing everything that I've done my entire life is directly related to that experience. So,
Hmm.
and I thrived in this. I'm seeing people get it, like, it was massive confirmation because I'm managing people in the way that I always believed I could have been so much more effective and successful and not fearing failure and all that if I'd been led this way. And so, fast forward, I decided to leave and write a book. And a friend of mine, 10 months into the process, said to me, you're going to explain why your process works, right? These practices, the way you led people. Like, otherwise, they're going to think you need a shitty childhood to lead this way. And
Mhm.
I honestly, Kehan, I hadn't given it any thought. So I started thinking, okay, like sitting exactly where I am, looking out my window and going, what was it that made people scale mountains for me consistently for my entire 25-year career? And I
Yeah.
realized that I was affecting the hearts in people. And I immediately went from euphoria to, wow, how profound that you could affect people that deeply that they would want to perform for you that way, to, we think the heart in leadership is the worst thing. And so I told my wife, I've wasted 10 months of my life. I'm not going forward. I'm not writing this book. This is the people that I used to work with are going to go like, did he have a mental breakdown, or, is he a spiritualist now or whatever? And she goes, well, you already know it's true from your own direct experience. So go find evidence for it. And I did.
Yeah.
I found evidence that shows that the heart and the mind are connected. And that was enough
Right.
for me to realize, okay, I'm not going back to my old life. I actually have something meaningful to say. And
Yes.
so that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, that's what I love about your work is that you link it to things that people who would say, we don't have time for friendship. We don't have time for heart. We just got to, deliver results. I'm judged by a leader, by revenue and profit. You bind those two, and you show that, like that, this is the path to achieving that, even if that's all you care about. And I imagine that in following that path, then you come to realize like the path is the destination. as well. So I want to get into that proof point, but before I get there, can you tell me what your definition of strategy is?
So it's evolved. It's know where you want to go, build a clear and thorough plan on how you want to get there. And the third dimension is something that I've really learned over probably the past year in writing my new book, which is to be completely open to having that plan not work, and to
Mm.
not look at it and go, the gods are screwing me here. I had this perfect plan, and why aren't you supporting me? And why isn't this going the way I want to? And that's kind of the way we've done it, or we just go, put more fuel on the plan because the plan's got to work. We got to make this thing work. And I think from a leadership standpoint, what I've learned is our control over the universe and our outcomes is an illusion. So if we
Mhm.
understand that there's all these other people and experiences and businesses and just life that's impacting us, that when we have a plan, we think it's perfect and it doesn't go our way, then our pivot is almost immediate. It's like, oh, okay, I should expect that this isn't going to go the way I want it to. And so what do we do now? As opposed to let's
Mhm.
spend another 3 months trying to prove the plan was right because our egos are telling us can't walk away from the plan. You spent 6 months on that plan. And I've seen people fail because they just keep double downing on the strategy when they're getting data that's showing, hey, here's the road. Take this road. It's
Yep.
going to get you where you want to get to.
Right, right. So it's almost like by kind of precognizing that the plan may not work, you can, when you're getting that negative feedback that it's time to pivot, you're kind of further along in the process
Way
of
further along,
absorb. Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, but that's a
yeah,
challenge for us, right? Because
yeah,
I
yeah,
spent all this time putting this plan together. It's like, is that a reflection on me that it doesn't go well? Sometimes, like
yeah,
you should have seen that coming. Like that's obvious. So you need to
yeah,
be thorough. That's the second part of it. But it's really just accepting that life doesn't go the way we want to most of the time. I had a
yeah,
futurist on my podcast recently, and his basic premise is that we suck at predicting the future. Like there's just too many holes in our ability to predict the future. So if we know going in that whatever plan and projections that we're going to do are probably limited, then it's just so much easier to just say, okay, we missed something, but that's okay. That's all right. What do we do now?
yeah,
That I think is the brilliance of leadership when you can just say, what's the next step? As
yeah.
opposed to bring that guy in here or put that plan together. We need to talk to him. Like that's where we put our energy. It's like
Yes, yes,
we need to punish this guy or her or whatever. And it's like it's just
yes.
nonsense.
So I'm just seeing a loose link between your story of your upbringing and what you're describing here. I don't know if there's something here, but there's something about what we can control and what we can't control. And maybe your upbringing left you kind of feeling like there's very little that I can control. And then you said there are things that I can control, and then you kind of changed. So there is this kind of stoic distinction of appreciating what is within our control and not within our control.
100%. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily would have made those connections, but I think they're real. Uh,
Yeah.
I learned early on. I think one of the reasons, like, it took me 6 years to get out of college because I was just trying to survive and try to navigate, work and making a living and not having my car break down and that kind of instability. When you go through that and you're living that for a really long time and then you achieve your goal, you kind of look at it and like I've had plenty of time to reflect on like when I live like a mile from where I went to college, UCSD, University of California, San Diego, and I walk
Mhm.
through there, and they've got this. I don't know what they call it, but it's a walk, and they've got a block with the year of graduation. So all the way
Mhm.
back to when the school started in 1960, all the way up to 2024. And when I walk, I literally just put my foot on this block, like acknowledging what I pulled off because I think
Mhm.
it's remarkable that I was able to do it and then do it well and then to leverage that. And I think what I figured out was when life is hard, you're working for a really difficult boss, or you have a situation where you're managing something and it's not going well, instinctively, perhaps not cognitively, like fully recognizing it, instinctively, there was something inside of me going, You've seen a lot worse. You're going to get through this. You'll navigate it. This is going to work out." So I'm a very deeply optimistic person, and I express that to
Mhm.
people who are working for me for that reason. So I think you made a really
Mhm.
cool observation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's and I think that brings kind of to this distinction of well-being because, I guess you could say like during that period, um, probably wouldn't call yourself satisfied. But it seems like it was an impactful, motivating experience for you. And so I'm wondering why you use the word well-being instead of satisfaction in your title. Because, it's all like satisfaction scores, employee satisfaction, mapping that things, but you are not talking about satisfaction. What is well-being and why is that different? And why is it important that it's different than
So
satisfaction?
let's go back to the beginning of the conversation, something that you said, which is that, what I discovered is that the way we've traditionally managed people is sort of top down. I'm in charge. You're lucky to have a job. I'm going to pay you as little as possible. I'm going to squeeze as much out of you as possible. And look, if you don't like it, I got somebody waiting in the next room taking your job. So you're going to marinate in fear and you're doing this for a paycheck. And I'm basically saying, actually, you could not have set up a system that could be more disconnected to human nature. So
Yep.
we human beings thrive on positive emotions. We actually need them in order to thrive. We need a high ratio. So life just, you wake up in the morning, you look at your watch, you're like, "Oh my God, I overslept. I'm 20 minutes late." Instantly negative emotion. You get in the car and there's traffic. Instantly, you get up at your desk and there's a note that says from your boss, "I need to see you, Kaihan. What's going on with this project?" Instant negative emotion. And so I'm saying, if you work in an environment where the manager or the leader isn't creating experiences for you to offset that with positive emotions through growth opportunities, by being made to feel safe, by having appreciation expressed to you, all kinds of things like that, have a caring manager, then
Mhm.
you're never going to be optimal. You're never going to be set up to perform well. And
Yes.
so, but the connection to that is that we as managers are the ones that said we want their satisfaction scores to go up. We want their engagement scores to go up. This has always been something companies wanted. So
Yep.
if you work for me and I go, "Kaihan, we're really hoping that we can elevate our engagement scores," which means, we're hoping that you'll become more engaged. What's in it for you? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
zero. It's all about getting discretionary effort for you for the money that I'm paying you. So there was always this sort of misalignment in terms of where's the win-win.
Mhm.
So if I said to you, "Hey, we're not going to talk about engagement anymore. I want to talk to you about your well-being." You're going to go on. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you're in,
You're
right?
interested in that.
You're
Yeah.
going to do
You're in
something
there.
to support my well-being. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that when we do this, that well-being actually sets you up for optimal performance. I mean, this is completely consistent with everything that I've been talking about for the last 15 years, right? It's when you feel, and this, by the way, is your self-assessment. So
Mhm.
how do you feel is really what it comes down to. So one of the other major takeaways from all my work is that we're not rational. Everything boils down to feelings and emotions. Up to 95% of human behavior is driven by feelings and emotions. And people come up to me when they hear me say this and they go, "Yeah, well, I'm a data guy and I'm really analytical, so I'm the exception." And what they don't understand is it's going on under the hood. They're totally unconscious about it. We have these feelings, it goes back and the heart is involved. It goes up to the mind. The mind makes a decision about what to do about it. We actually rationalize
Mhm.
our decisions based on our
After.
feelings afterwards,
Mhm.
right? Or in
Mhm.
the moment. And,
Mhm.
so people can have data in front of them. They'll say, "But I think we need to do this," because they're feeling something. There's some experience that's influencing them. And so, really, what this boils down to is that if your well being is high, I'm setting you are actually set up for optimal behavior or performance, rather. Ideal. Like
Mhm.
if you're marinating in positive emotions and you're having a really good experience from work, guess what? You're actually going to perform well. So again, going back to the beginning of the conversation, guess what? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing as leaders? Is getting the best
Mm.
performance out of you, right?
I see.
So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's really the argument.
So what is so I want to get to your proof points because I think that's going to be really important and compelling. Um, well-being, how do you define that? And in what I'm kind of hearing, what you're saying is well-being is a state or situation in which you're set up for optimal performance. So that's kind of the definition. Or are you saying well-being is something else? And by the way, it results in optimal performance.
No, it's actually both.
Okay.
But in other words, when you personally are experiencing well-being, you are naturally set up to do your best work. So
Okay.
that's the premise.
Okay.
So, what's happened here is the companies are focusing on wellness. So they're giving people like, headspace apps, here we're going to give you meditation. And, oh, by the way, there's a yoga class at lunch you can go to. And we think these are the solutions to having an environment where people hate coming to work. So I'm saying really the experience of work, almost up, at least 70% of it is driven by the experience that people have working for their manager. So well-being is defined by the leadership experience that people have. And
Okay.
so is there a sense of belonging? Is the manager consistent in their behavior? Do they know me personally and what my life is outside of work? Do they care about that? Are they looking for
Mm-hmm.
growth opportunities for me? And do I feel safe? Like, do I, when I come in here, do I feel like this is a good place for me? And am I
Yes.
doing work that's meaningful? All of these contribute
Yes.
to well-being.
Great. Now, I love that the way that you have kind of uh, parsed out some of the elements. So I imagine like a leader or a strategist or an innovator can look at this and say, hey, we seem to be doing well here, feel safe, but leaders don't know or aren't perceived as caring but I want to go through some of those. But first, I just wanted you to tell me, what are some of the proof points? Because you went out and you look for the proof point because you knew intuitively that this made sense. But share with us some of
There's
the most
there's a couple of
memorable
things.
proof
So I
points.
mean, I hope you can see, and you've asked their questions in perfect order. I hope you can see that by talking about well-being, that I'm not introducing something foreign to what I've been talking about all along. It's always
Mm-hmm.
been about well-being. Just didn't
Mm-hmm.
really focus on that language. But there's two things that kind of drove this. Number one is that in 2013, I reached out to Gallup. So I wrote a book called Lead from the Heart, and there was a lot of resistance to this. And so I realized I know I'm right. I know I've got the science. I know I've got the life experience to prove this, but I'm going to have to play the long game in order to get people to buy into what I'm saying. So I started writing for Fast Company magazine, and I just on a whim reached out to Gallup and just said, "Hey, like sort of generically, any research you guys doing showing that people hate going to work and that there's bad experiences?" And the head of research there, who created their not only their engagement study but their well-being study 30 years ago, basically said, "Well, yeah, we're about to report that only 30% of Americans are engaged at work, and like 17% are so unhappy that they've become saboteurs." And I'm like, this is
Hmm.
horrible. So they
Wow.
gave me permission in an article that I wrote, again, 2013, 12 years ago. They gave me permission to be the first person to announce that.
Wow.
And so this was the shot heard around the world, right? Like this was,
Mhm.
we got to fix engagement. Like, oh, what upside we can have if we could get everybody engaged. And all these companies started doing initiatives, and people have made fortunes doing consulting and books and all that kind of stuff. So as I was working on the new book, I saw something that showed that Gallup engagement is exactly where it was in 2013. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like we've made no progress
Wow.
whatsoever. Like,
Even though
so,
we know.
like instantaneously, I was like, this is stupid. Like, we got to stop doing this. So I went out on Twitter, and this is in the new book. Like, I laid this out. I went out on Twitter and I said, here's my experience. What do you people think is the reason? And they all came back with the same thing. There's never been any sincerity around it, and it's too
Mm.
complicated. We asked 12 questions. So you could ask them, one of the questions is, do you have a good friend at work? And another one is, do you have enough right equipment? So you get the data back, And the data goes, well, Mark's not really well engaged. So if you're my manager, you're like, well, do I help him get a friend or I help him get a computer? Like it's all over the place. So there was that, right? So I'm looking at engagement. I'm like, pardon me, and I'm just going to say it in the way I felt it. It's time to just shit can this. It's like, this is stupid. We got to stop this. Stop talking about it. Stop doing it. It doesn't work. The surveys are done twice a year. We never held anybody accountable for it. On and on it goes. But then I happened to read an article in some obscure place that showed that there was research out of Oxford University that showed that there is a direct relationship between everything leaders want and employee well-being. So, and I went to Oxford in December of last year and met with Jan Emmanuel Deneuve, who's an economist, who's an economics professor there. And what they did was a study of a call center, and they simply asked people at the end of the week, tell us how you felt at the end of this week. And they didn't say, oh, by the way, if you're having marital problems, that's probably affecting your well-being. So, could you discount that, or money? They just simply asked the question. And then they went back and they looked at the key performance metrics. How often, how many times, how many calls did they make? How many sales did they make? How long did they stay on their calls? And they showed there's a linear relationship. More in the green, meaning, people are really happy, higher productivity. More in the red and the orange, lower productivity. And they did this for well over a year. So it was so conclusive and so simple. So instead of asking people 12 questions and then companies add on while we're surveying, we should ask them about all this stuff. How do you feel about the parking situation? And we muddied the whole water. This is simply 1 or 2, 3 questions. Tell us on a scale of 1 to 5, how caring is your boss? Like instantaneously, those results get up to management and you look at it and you're like, okay, we need to deal with this because we've got some bad feedback here.
Gotcha. Tell me about caring. Let's just dig into that a little bit, because, you also talk about psychological safety. We had Amy Emmons on the podcast as well. And one thing I appreciated was there is this conception that, say, being a good place to work or being, I don't know, the aspiration is just to be friendly, but that's not. So talk to us about, is caring just being nice?
Nice is nice, but nobody succeeds in leadership as being nice. And what I mean by that is that you have to be demanding at the same time if you're going to get your results. So the people, what a lot of people have done to conflate my work is to say, well, when you bring heart into leadership, people just get soft around the middle and they stop performing. And it's actually just the opposite, right? So, and interestingly, I have expanded, and Amy wrote a beautiful testimonial for my second edition and read the book and never said a word to me. But in my book, I said, it's not psychological safety. It's psychological and emotional safety, because psychological is here and emotional is here. And we know up to 95% of our behavior is driven by this. So, but here's probably the best example that I can give you to tie everything together. So there's an organization called the Institute of HeartMath. And for the last 30 plus years, they've been studying the intelligence of the heart. So in my inclination coming out of the childhood that I had and the way that I managed people, I made them feel safe. I gave them thoughtful direction. I found their potential and helped them maximize it. I made sure that people knew how much I appreciated them. Like I lavished them, but I was also setting some very high expectations and we consistently met those, right? So it's this combination. So that's the caring aspect. But what the Institute of HeartMath told me was that every time I told somebody that they were doing well or told them that, hey, over the weekend I was reading an article and it made me think of a conversation you and I had. So here's the article. You're dripping positive emotions on people. And he said, people were marinating in positive emotions because of how much you demonstrated to them that you cared about them, that you thought about them, that their success, their growth and well-being mattered to you. He said, you could not have done anything better, whether you realized you were doing it or not, to set people up for optimal performance. So we know positive emotions we thrive on, but his definition is fascinating. What he said is that we know that the heart and the mind are connected through what's called the vagus nerve. The heart sends more communication to the brain than the other way around. By the way, the heart is formed
Really?
in the embryo first before the brain. So it's almost as if they had to
Mm-hmm.
make a choice and said, put the heart in charge. But what he
Mm-hmm.
said was that when people are experiencing this high ratio of positive emotions, the way you were leading them, that the communication between the heart and the mind goes into what's called coherence. And when we
Yes.
are in coherence, we are able to perform at our best.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I did. I think this is what you're talking about. There's this kind of meditation that I've done where it sort of measures something, my coherence, and it was sort of to practice being able to put myself into coherence. But now I understand more clearly what that is. And so then I guess leadership's role, one of leadership's role is to enable that coherence, which kind of puts people, I don't know, in the zone or in the right
I
kind of
think that's
balance.
sort of like, that's the end game, but it shouldn't be your
Yep.
goal. Your goal
Got
should
it.
be to understand that going to work for a paycheck, those days are over. That people have
Mhm.
expectations of work that have transcended what they were just 15, 20 years ago. And
Yep.
people want to work for a boss who knows them, that cares about them, that's their advocate, that's somebody who's going to coach them and teach them and help them grow to wherever they want to get to, somebody who's going to appreciate them. And so if we do those things, those lead to the positive emotion and the high ratio, and that leads to coherence. So, yes, if
Yes.
you want to be really sophisticated, aim for coherence. If you want to be practical, just make sure that you're thinking about your people, that you genuinely care about them. In fact, in my new book, Power of Employee Wellbeing, I actually put it out there. Like, if you don't love people, if you don't really like to see other people succeed, like a
Mm-hmm.
traditional coach would. When you're coaching a sports team, you're not going in the last 2 minutes and taking the ball from the quarterback or the pitcher. You're relying on them to do that. Your
Yes.
job is to
Yes.
help them. And if that's not in your nature, then don't go into leadership, because you'll
Yes.
never be caring if you're always thinking about yourself.
Yeah. It makes me think of, I haven't had a boss in 20 years. I've been an entrepreneur, but I mean, lots of clients as bosses, but, in talking to executives, I have seen this kind of frustration of when the boss feels threatened by you or doesn't want you to succeed, doesn't want you to get. And then I think about, I mean, this is the Jack Welch GE days that managers were measured by could they graduate people from their team out to other things. There is this kind of sense of you feel supported when the leader wants you to be bigger than them, wants you to advance further than them, which I guess speaks to the growth opportunities.
Well, again, if your motivation is, and the best test of this is just to look to see when you were most satisfied in your career. And if it was
Mm-hmm.
individual achievements, you're probably not going to be a good leader. If it was being part of a team or even helping the
Got it.
team succeed, right?
Got it.
So,
Yeah.
so I think that's really the emphasis here, is that we should be looking for people to go into leadership roles who've already demonstrated the ability to help other people succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I learned this question. It's like if I said to you, Kaihan, we're very much about coaching our people and helping our people progress. Can you tell me, in your leadership career, tell me one or two people? Have you just put it this way? Have you ever helped somebody grow in their career and get promoted into something else? And
Mm-hmm.
of course, they're in a job interview, and they're going to go, well, of course, I've done it many, many times. And they go, okay, well, great. Give us the name of the person and tell us specifically what you did. I kind of helped Bill. He got promoted. But what did you do specifically? They don't have a story, because it was never in their instinct to help somebody else get there, right? The story should
Mm-hmm.
just flow out of you. So this is like a
Mm-hmm.
reorientation. We've always had the brainiest, smartest people go into leadership. And those people, not those people, that's the bad way to frame this, but people who are just simply really good with data and analysis and math and that kind of stuff, they're not going to have the orientation, because it hasn't been bred in them, hasn't been developed in them. So we're,
Yes.
we're really looking for people who can do both, like run a business, but take care of your people, because that's what's going to get you to the promised land.
Great. Um, I've got like 10 questions. I want to get into belonging. But there's something that I want to ask you. It's something that I believe, but I want the support to show that I believe the right thing. We had Stephen Myers, a professor at Columbia University. He wrote a book called The Employee Advantage, and he had a line that was, "The employee is the new customer." I want to believe that that's true. I want to believe that it's not just because of economic cycles that we have excess employment, not enough employment, and and it's going to pendulum back and forth between, oh, we need to really treat our employees well, to, oh, they can just be commoditized cogs that we can buy and sell. And why do you believe, and I want to believe this, why do you believe that this is the new norm, the new future, that we really, our success of our firms, of our leadership, comes from, and how you
The
activate and
direct
treat
answer is that because performance is determined by how people feel. And so, we're seeing this right now with AI, right? So, uh, you've got the CEO of Salesforce who wrote an editorial in Time magazine saying AI must be used to advance the abilities of humans, not take away their jobs. And then within 2 weeks, he lets 4,000 people go and go, we didn't need those heads anymore. Heads. That's what he said. And so if I'm working at Salesforce, um, Mark Benioff, is that his name?
Mark Benioff,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I'm working in that company, you've told me all I need to know about my value in this organization. Like, push comes to shove, I'm going to be gone. You need to hit a quarterly number, I'm going to be gone, no matter what. And so that's unstable for people. Like, I don't want, by the way, I don't want to commit to an organization that doesn't value me as a person. So you pretty much told me, by the way, if AI is going to keep coming, we're just going to keep letting people go. So,
Yes.
so I think retention of people is going to become a bigger issue. It's so expensive for companies to turn over people, but really,
And train
it's like,
them.
yeah, I mean, you realize how like ridiculously intensive we've made the recruiting process. People are having 20 job interviews, and they're meeting with, the guy in the mailroom. Hey, would you like to work with this guy? We're asking everybody, and then we bring them on and we treat them like shit as soon as they get there. And I'm like, why would we do that? Like, what? Why? Right?
Yeah.
So if you're telling people you're going to love working here, and then they come in and they find out very quickly that they don't, why do you commit to a company like that? Why do you plant your stake, your flag in an organization like that? And the interesting thing is, I'll just punctuate this and say that it's not the bottom performers that quit. It's the top performers who are completely enlightened.
Point.
They're the ones who are
Point.
like, I got to get the hell out of here. This isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be.
I've got other opportunities. I got somewhere where they'll treat me
Exactly.
right.
Like, I'm value. I'm good. I'm not going to put up with this. I'm just not. And I think this is what companies realize. They're like, hey, we were hoping that, the bottom 20 would leave, but they're the ones who stuck around because they have nowhere else to go. And now we're stuck with, wait a minute, why did we let that person go? And so I think companies have sort of realized we can't afford to keep losing these stars. And you can't, by the way, just pick the stars and treat them well. These people are too smart. They're like, wait a minute, you're just playing me. I need to see the whole organic environment here of being a culture where everybody's valued, not just, the high performers or the people that have an expertise that no one else has.
Is this why you point out this driver of belonging? The research shows that people quit more from a lack of belonging than bad leadership.
So
what you're describing to me sounds like belonging.
The Oxford University, there were two pieces of data. One that was like, I was like, hallelujah, somebody is finally showing this from a data standpoint. And then another piece of data that was like, this is phenomenal because it relates to the heart, but I would never have known it. So the first part was that, this is Jan Emmanuel Deneuve at Oxford. He said that employee well-being is all driven by feelings and emotions. Like, okay, that's my premise. This is great, wonderful. I've now had, a complete data guy validate this. But then he said that we've looked at what are the drivers of employee well-being, and the number one driver is belonging. And belonging is all about connection, which is we don't connect here, we connect here. So again, like
Head to heart.
one more validation for the heart. But this expanded my understanding, because what he's really saying is that what people are looking for at work isn't just connection, isn't just friendship. It's knowing you're not competing with the person next to you, that you can go to them and say, hey, I'm having a problem. Can you help me? Where the other person goes, screw you, because if I help you, you're going to get a bigger bonus than me because we're competing against each other. Get rid of that. But also making sure that leaders build cohesive teams, that people feel a part of it. And something we're having a real hard time with in our society, which is accepting people for who they are and what they believe and how they carry themselves and how they dress and what their religions are and all of that. Like, if you hire somebody into your organization, you've already made the decision. Why wouldn't you treat them as being welcome? So there's this adage that Gallup has said for many years, which is that people don't quit organizations, they quit managers. And what Denev has found is that that's true. But what supersedes that is that people quit when they don't feel that they're part of a team, that they don't feel like they belong to the group that they're working with. And that is really amazing, right?
Yeah. That just feels right in my experience. I have so many more questions, so much more to cover. You've got a great podcast. You've got great material out there. And I wish we had more time with you. I love that you bring together this personal experience with the science and marry that with like practical things that we can do and raise this platform that we all care about. For anyone who has a job or anyone who knows anyone who has a job, they should care about this. So my question is, let's say you are a leader in an organization or you're influencing leadership in an organization. You realize that the future of the happiness of our employees and also the future of the performance of our company depends on this. Where should you start? What's the first thing that you can do to start creating this transformation?
So there's two, and it's interesting because as I was listening to your question, I knew exactly where I want to go, and then I realized it's not where I started the book. Where I started the book is to say that if you want to create well-being, you have to know yourself. You have to understand what drives you, what motivates you, what influences you had in your childhood. That sounds ridiculous to some people, but what I'm saying is that when you spend 18 years with people, a mother and a father and brothers and sisters and uncles and whatever that experience was, tends to have a huge influence on how we behave and think and act. And so some of that's good. Like if you had a father that was very challenging, but also said you have the potential to be something great, then okay, bring that to work. If you had the father that I had, you don't want to bring that to work. But a lot of times we do. A lot of times we don't even think about it. We just go, well, my father was an asshole and this is the way he got performance out of me. Look at me, I'm successful. And so, I'm going to go do that. But we don't realize how much of our behavior is driven unconsciously. The second part is to define your values so that you can say to people, these are the things that matter to me. And then obviously you've got to live to them. But this combination of knowing thyself and knowing who you are and what you stand for, it's everything in terms of how you influence people. Because if people can see that's who Mark is, this is who he is every day, then we know how to make decisions that are aligned to that. We also know, do I want to align to that? Like those are his values. Do I want to be a part of his team or do I want to go somewhere else? Maybe somebody doesn't like what my values are, and that's fine. But by the end of the day, you have a team of people who are aligned with you. This is so you're setting up well-being for people when they're like, I love what he stands for. I love what he wants to do and how he does it. So I think those are the two, but there's the other aspect of this is the one that you were talking about. And we talked at the beginning of the conversation about who your audience is and their strategy people and their innovators. And I would say on your team and within all teams within your organizations, if you can communicate the importance of having each other's back, that you're not going to reward. You have like 10 people on your team and one person's just killing it. And you're like, hey, everyone, look what Tom's doing. Look what Tom's doing. It's like, no, start with the team. Look what we're doing. Tom's doing excellent. A lot of you are contributing. We're all contributing, but we're all part of this fantastic team. That cohesion creates belonging. The sense that whatever I do, and this goes all the way down to the lowest common denominator of the team, right? If you have somebody who's working as a receptionist and you're not including them, you're missing the plot. Like everyone needs to be included. Everyone needs to be valued, and make sure that all of your systems are set up so that people aren't competing for rewards, recognition, pay, bonuses by you and I having to go mano a mano,
and step on each other.
Where the boss goes, well, I mean, Kaihan's work is just, slightly better, so he's going to get 50% more of the bonus. And I'm like, okay, I'm competing with Kaihan forever, so I'm not going to help that guy ever again. This is the way it's played out.
Yeah. And just to be clear, you're not talking about, let's just spread it all evenly. Let's just everyone treated exactly the same.
No, I'm not. You're exactly right. But I am saying focus on the team first, right? So if you have a sports team, every sports team has somebody who's like the star, right? But Tom Brady won all those Super Bowls, not because he was Tom Brady alone. He's exceptional and remarkable and one of a kind, but he had people to throw it to and give the ball to and protect them and give them all the time and coaching to tell them how to do it. And so if you're looking at it and go, Tom Brady is the reason they won, you're missing the element of leadership.
He elevated the team. Like Michael Jordan did as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Great. Yep. Love it. So how can people connect with you and continue to learn from you? We definitely encourage them to get both books, to subscribe to your podcast. What else do you suggest someone do to stay connected with you and continue learning and pursuing this journey with you?
Send money. No, I'm kidding. Operators are standing by. So my name is, when my first book came out, I found out there was another Mark Crowley. So I had to put it.
Really?
Yeah. Some guy in Ohio, and he gets my emails sometimes and he's always annoyed by it. So in any event, I'm Mark C. Crowley. So you can find me, Mark C. Crowley, at LinkedIn, markccrowley.com. Those would be two easiest ways to find me. My podcast and the books and everything are on the website. But that's the best.
Yeah. And your writings on Fast Company. And I love the markccrowley.com website. There's a lot of great, valuable content.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for the work that you do. Thanks for sharing it so clearly and passionately and motivating us to be on this journey with you.
Yeah, very cool questions. So thanks for the time. I really appreciate being invited.
Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our executive producer, Zach Ness, our editor, James Pierce, and the rest of the team. If you like what you heard, please follow, download, and subscribe. I'm your host, Kaihan Krippendorf. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time with another episode of Outthinkers.